What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be going through my top 5 most underrated players in the AFL. There is no particular order to this list. It's just 5 players I feel like that they don't get the credit they deserve for putting in good performances for their footy clubs week in, week out. So let me know in the comments below who are some of your favourite players who are underrated going on at the moment in the AFL, and let's get straight into my list of 5 most underrated players in the AFL. The first one off the list is a Gold Coast player who puts in performances week in, week out, even though the team doesn't do quite as well as some of them would like. But Alex Sexton is a player that continually hits the scoreboard for the footy club, even though they're playing in games where they're just smashed off the park, and some of those weeks are quite consistent. But he's able to kick goals when no other player on their team is. He kicked 39 goals in the 2019 season. He's one of those players who's an old-fashioned footballer and really just gets in. He's not a pretty footballer, but he certainly just gets the job done for his footy club. And even though they aren't performing as well as they'd like, he certainly is putting a performance in that is respectable. And even with that moustache that he's just carrying around, he's certainly doing the job. So I think if Gold Coast become better, he'll certainly get more recognition that he definitely deserves as well. Second player who I feel is underrated in the AFL at the moment is Port Adelaide boy. He's Dan Houston. He certainly is becoming one of the biggest players at the footy club for the Power. He's certainly standing up when others aren't. And when he went into the midfield later in 2019, his performances went through the roof. He even polled 3 Brownlow votes against Essendon. He was averaging 24 disposals throughout the year, and his efficiency with the footy, especially coming off of halfback early on in the year, he's able to penetrate kicks. He's a long kick. He's a good kick. And he's just a player that I think, even though he's in the South Australian Bowl of the media and doesn't get the recognition he deserves even in SA, I think as an AFL standard, he's certainly up there as a future talent. And even though he's young, he's certainly going to be one of those players to be watching out for in the coming years, and be leading the Port Adelaide midfield, and certainly as soon as next year. So I look forward to seeing him develop very nicely. But he's definitely underrated in the eyes of certain players that certain people that are in the AFL spectrum. Another one that is very underrated is another South Australian player, this time for the Adelaide Crows. He's Wayne Milera. I think he only played 17 games in 2019, but his efficiency with the footy is second to none, especially coming off of halfback. And he's certainly able to go down forward and kick a few goals as well, which is something a lot of players don't actually have that versatility. And I think with the game, the way it's progressing these days, to have players that are more versatile, play dual positions, Wayne Milera is someone that can actually cross the ground really well. He could actually go into the midfield at some stage, and I think certainly for an aspect as the Crows are looking at going into the future with their new start in 2020, Wayne Milera is someone they can build that around, and his performances throughout 2019 were sensational when he was on the park anyway. So he's definitely someone that I would rate very highly coming into the future, and someone that they actually look past on occasions. The next couple are some more recognisable names, but they're certainly not given the credit they deserve. One is from North Melbourne, Ben Carrington. A hard nut player, one of the spiritual leaders at the football club. Reminds me a lot of, in terms of a spiritual leader, like a Travis Boak type, Rory Sloane for the Crows, someone like that, of that calibre that really lifts the team when no one else can. And he doesn't get recognition. He doesn't get Brownlow votes. He doesn't poll, but he just averages 26 disposals, goes about his business very nicely, and he's a hard, tough machine in the midfield where he is able to influence the contest. And he does it so well. But then that's the thing. When you do that, you're not getting the recognition you deserve. He's not a flashy player. He's a hard nut, old-fashioned footballer that gets in, gets his nose dirty, and gets the ball out. And someone that definitely deserves more recognition for the type of player he is. And from a North Melbourne point of view, one of the best players at that footy club. Last but not least, there's certainly many other AFL players that are underrated and don't get the recognition they deserve. And it's tough to put them into a list because there's so many different types of players. There's so many different types of, different positions that they play, and all of that, and all their performances are up and down, and etc. So you can't really put in as a number one. But I think this bloke certainly stands out from the rest. He started to get some recognition, has definitely with the fantasy players. If you're a fantasy player, Jack Macrae is someone that you always seem to pick first in that midfield position. And finally, as from an AFL point of view, people are starting to notice, but he's certainly not at the calibre where you'd say he's like a Nat Fyfe or Gary Ablett, that type of player, because he's not given the recognition he deserves. And for someone that's averaged 33 disposals in a season, he's basically a pig in AFL fantasy. Polled second in the Brownlow votes for the Western Bulldogs. And, you know, he's just someone that gets the footy, he tackles hard, he does all the basics right. And when you have a player of that calibre in your side, it certainly helps out. And their midfield, the Western Bulldogs, is actually one of the more underrated midfields in the competition anyway, with Dunkley and Hunter, obviously Bontempelli, and whoever else moves through there, Liberatore at some stage as well. I think with Macrae there, he's certainly one that people don't give him the nod of approval. And, you know, he's just one of the good footballers that we have in this generation, where he continues to influence games, creates a contest, and can hit the scoreboard, and that's priceless. I could go through countless other players who are underrated. There's certainly a lot of defenders out there that don't get the credit. Grimes from Richmond, you've got Stevenson from Collingwood, Shepherd from West Coast. You know, all these types of players that don't get the recognition they deserve, and they're very underrated, and they really help their team perform better on the day. And let me know in the comments below if there's someone I've missed that you feel is very underrated and doesn't get the recognition in the AFL that he deserves. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, for plenty more AFL and Port Adelaide content coming your way over the off-season, ready for a big 2020 season. My name is Anthony, and as always, count the pair.